Howard Lutnick just got caught in a lie. Not a small one. A lie about Jeffrey Epstein. A lie he told publicly, on the record, to the press. He said the last time he saw Epstein was 2005. He said he was so disgusted by the man that he swore he would never go back. But the Epstein files told a different story. In 2012, 4 years after Epstein pleaded guilty to soliciting a minor for prostitution, Lutnick brought his wife, his children, and his nannies to Epstein's private island. And 5 days later, he signed a business deal with him. 2 members of Congress just sat across from him and asked him to explain that. Stay until the end, because what he said instead is exactly what a cover-up looks like.
Mrs. Dean?
Thank you, Chairman Rogers, Ranking Member Meng, Ranking Member DeLauro. Good afternoon, Secretary Lutnick. Last Tuesday, I had the chance to attend a breakfast for RAIN, the Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network. It was their Congressional Day of Action. Survivors came to me, told me their horrific stories, and the survivors I spoke with had one message. They're seeking accountability and justice. After speaking with the survivors, I again went to the Department of Justice to review the unredacted Epstein files, to seek accountability and justice for the victims, the more than 1,000 victims and survivors. And today, Secretary Lutnick, I have some questions for you about what I saw. Let's start with your relationship with sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. In October, you told the New York Post with colorful narration that the last time you saw Jeffrey Epstein was in 2005 when you took a tour of his house, which happened to be right next door to yours. You claim you and your wife were so grossed out by this disgusting person, you swore you would never go back. But when the Epstein files came out, it turned out that was a lie. You were forced to admit that you had visited Epstein's private island in 2012. 4 years after Epstein pled guilty soliciting a minor for prostitution and was labeled a sex offender. You brought along your wife, your kids, your nannies to the predator's island. Incredibly poor judgment. But that even wasn't the whole truth. It turns out that 5 days after visiting his island, you and Epstein signed a business deal together as co-investors in a digital advertising company, Adfin. And emails showed you stayed in touch with Epstein about this deal as late as 2018. Secretary Lutnick, why did you lie to the New York Post about your relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? Oh, I did hear that. Please don't repeat your gracious offer to speak behind closed doors, not under oath, without the ability of this committee to question you. The American people wants to know, why did you lie about your relationship with Epstein?
The House Oversight Committee and I have agreed
We
will spend the time
reclaiming my
together.
time. I do not accept that answer. We've heard that one. We are our own committee. We have our own reason to test your credibility and veracity. Please answer the question, why did you lie to the Post?
I have voluntarily agreed to spend the time and talk about it.
I reclaim the time. Let the record reflect you're dodging the question. The cover-up continues. You know what? In your conversations with the president, is the president concerned about your continued relationship that you had with Mr. Epstein as recently as 2018?
I am not going to discuss conversations I have with the president. That is not something I'm going to do.
If you remember in that interview, you said you would never be in the room with him socially, for business, or even philanthropy. President Trump has just fired 3 cabinet secretaries, 3 women, Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, Lori Chavez DeRemer. If President Trump has even a shred of concern about accountability for Jeffrey Epstein's enablers, he would fire you too. Beyond Adfin, what other financial ties do you have to Jeffrey Epstein?
As I said, I'm going to answer all these
Beyond
questions.
Adfin, what other financial ties? You're the Commerce Secretary. We have a right to ask this question and get it answered.
Again, I'm not going to spend the budget day discussing something I've set aside time to spend on this topic
I'm going to
with your
switch
House
topics.
colleagues.
Let me switch topics. A different and equally disturbing issue, how your family is profiting from your work as Commerce Secretary. Let's start with tariffs. You and the President illegally imposed the highest tariffs on the American people since the Great Depression. And your sons figured out how to profit from the high tariffs by buying up refund rights, pennies on the dollar, just as you were out there cheerleading the tariffs. As a result, federal taxpayers like my constituents may now owe your family tens of or hundreds of millions of dollars. I wonder if President Trump is concerned about you and your family profiteering off the illegal tariffs.
You know that that is false. Here's reporting. I'd like to put it in the record. Howard Lutnick's old firm did not, in fact, profit from Supreme Court tariff ruling. It is just
It's your
not
sons.
true.
It's your sons. The
No,
reporting
his
is
old
it's your,
firm and my sons. It is not
Mr. Chairman,
true.
reclaiming
and you
my
know
time.
it's not true.
I have
it's
asked
not true.
Mr. Chairman, reclaiming about 20 seconds. I hope you recognize how fundamentally wrong and corrupt this is. I hope you take accountability and have the decency to resign before you are fired.
It's not true.
I yield.
Time of the gentlelady has expired.
Notice what Lutnick did there. He didn't deny visiting the island. He didn't deny signing the business deal. He didn't deny staying in contact with Epstein until 2018. He said, "I've set aside time to answer these questions in less than 2 weeks, behind closed doors, not under oath. That is not transparency. That is delay." And notice the specific offer he made. Not a public hearing, not sworn testimony, a private meeting, off the record, where this committee cannot question him. Ross called it exactly what it is. The cover-up continues. But here's what makes this moment even more important. Ross wasn't the only one asking, because right after her, another member of Congress sat down with the same question and got the exact same answer. Watch.
But I do want to start, Mr. Secretary. I mentioned in my opening statement that we had learned in recent months that, contrary to your earlier statement in which you suggested that you had cut off all contact with Epstein in 2005, you and your family had in fact had lunch with Mr. Epstein on a boat during a trip to his private island in 2012 and exchanged business emails with him as recently as 2018. This was years after his 2008 conviction for soliciting prostitution from a minor. I just wanted to ask, why did you publicly claim following your nomination that you were never in a room with him after 2005?
So I voluntarily agreed in less than 2 weeks to sit with your colleagues in the House and answer any and all questions on this topic. I have nothing to hide, and I am glad to answer their questions. Whatever questions you have on this topic, I will be glad to answer. It's in less than 2 weeks, and we've set aside the time to do that, and I will answer all the questions. So whatever questions you have, if you would give them to your colleagues, I will answer them. But today, I am here to testify about the budget. I've set aside voluntarily the time to answer those questions in less than 2 weeks. So today I am here to testify about the budget.
No, I appreciate that, and we'll definitely make sure that that message and offer is emphasized. When Senator Van Hollen in February asked if you would be willing to sharing records that you have, you told him that you would surely talk about that. You had nothing to hide. You know, what, if anything, have you done since that hearing to ensure that you are sharing all of your records?
I've set aside in less than 2 weeks the time that your House colleagues want to have me answer these questions. I am here to testify about the budget, but I have set aside voluntarily the time to answer these questions. And as you correctly have said, I I have nothing to hide.
Okay, I just, why I'm asking is because our American public deserves honesty and accountability from those of us who have the privilege of holding public office. This is a budget hearing, but it's also about our American taxpayers' money. The survivors of Epstein and his associates' horrific crimes deserve so much better from this government. I do want to use the rest of my time to ask about the Gold Card Visa program. President Trump directed you, in coordination with the Secretary of State and Homeland, to establish a Gold Card Visa program. As you know, people who are able to pay at least $1 million into Commerce's gift account are eligible for permanent legal residence and potentially citizenship. I wanted to ask how many of these applications have been approved and how many gifts have been received by Commerce?
The process was recently resolved with DHS, who runs the program, and they do a $15,000, the most serious vetting and analysis of any potential applicant in the history of government. Usually it was $600. These pay $15,000 for an extraordinary vet. So they have approved recently one person, and there are hundreds in the queue that they are going through the process. But this is a new program, and they've just set it up, and they wanted to make sure they did it perfectly.
2 members of Congress, 2 different questioning styles, one aggressive, one measured. Same question, same answer. I'm here to testify about the budget. I've set aside time, less than 2 weeks. Behind closed doors, Howard Lutnick is the Commerce Secretary of the United States of America. He visited Jeffrey Epstein's island 4 years after Epstein was convicted of soliciting a minor for prostitution. He brought his family. He signed a business deal 5 days later. He stayed in contact until 2018. He lied about all of it publicly. And when Congress asked him to explain, he talked about the budget. The survivors who came to Congress that week with one message, accountability and justice, watched this happen. Subscribe to Dana Weston Daily. Because when they change the subject, we don't. Drop a comment. Do you think Lutnick should resign? We read every single one.